Well, thank you all. It's really amazing to be here today. I have to say I'm very impressed with the production and everything happening here. And I'm also happy to see so many people in Belgrade, not just currently in the room, but general people that came and visited all of the events and also side talks. So personally, I'm, as I said, very happy to be here. My name is Ivan. I run a company called MVP Workshop, which is a venture builder company that over the last 5 years of its existence managed to work on over 50 different blockchain products, 2 of which are now considered unicorns. One is Celsius Network and the other one is Polygon that we are currently getting more and more involved with. And I'll mention that during this presentation. So, in general, the topic I want to cover today is about DAOs and how are they changing the way that we work, and is it really because of DAOs or is it something that is just going to be happening? I'm pretty sure that at least half of the room will disagree with everything I'm going to say. Which is partially because maybe I didn't think it through, and partially because this is also evolving so fast that everyone has an opinion. And I think that the fact that everyone has an opinion on these things is really very interesting, because at the last time I was at a panel, I was asked, how do you guys, manage for so many years to hit all of these new technologies coming up, and how did you guys decide to go into Web3 at all? And my answer was that it was actually very simple, and that we realized that Web3 is coming after Web2. So considering that everything is happening kind of incremental, it's very easy for you to actually understand where everything is going. The only question is actually what Web3 is going to be. And if you look at what happened in the last few days with Terra Luna and everything, so many people now, with so many people now who stopped believing in algorithmic stablecoins suddenly, I think we are going to see more and more of these moves where in hindsight it's going to be very easy to predict, but right now no one really knows what is going on. So I first wanted to cover why I think both tokens and DAOs are important for organizations in general, and how are they changing the way we work. About 30 years ago, I think we saw this moment where everyone said, okay, capitalism won. It's a much better system than other systems that we saw so far, and with all of its deficiencies, it still lets us innovate faster. It is very close to the way that humans think, primarily about themselves and about their communities. It basically fits in with human nature very well, and we started believing, that markets are self-regulating and are very good at that. The main problem with capitalism, and also the main draw of capitalism, is actually the control of capital. I am a company owner. I have been building companies over 10 years. Of half of my work experience, I was an entrepreneur of some sort. I built companies, I sold companies, many things happened. And I very much benefited from this system, because over the time period I accumulated capital, I was able to hire people. And I believe that in general, the control of the means of production was at the heart of what made capitalism work. You basically had 2 classes. One was the class of actual builders, people who were actually building something and contributing, and the other class is people who were mainly investors and owners who basically decided where to allocate their capital in order to make something happen. But when I look at our company today, MVP Workshop, and most companies that I work in today in terms of tech, more than 80% of our expenses are salaries. So who is actually now controlling the means of production? I'm pretty sure that it is very much changing in this regard. You have more and more people actually working in companies, but being probably even more important than the CEO. And that's because capitalism in general has a lot of deficiencies also. When we are talking about all of these self-regulating markets, we also have another thing in mind, and that is the fact that the rate of innovation that we have today is extremely fast. And having people who have access to the information, make all of the decisions, is becoming more and more important. And those people are usually actually the workers and the builders, and not actually the ones, just making strategic decisions. And because of all of this, I think that the current way we organize work is starting to shift away from this model where we have a single person or an entity actually controlling the allocation of capital. This is not either a pitch for communism or is it a pitch for tokenization of the world because somehow it's going to become better. This is just saying that in general the new types of organization coming up are being more built bottom up than we are used to. And I personally believe that in the next 10 years or so we are actually going to see more and more companies going down this route. Not because we are going to have a lot of people who believe that democratization of these resources is the right way to go. It's just that we are reaching a critical mass of builders who have more and more skills and understanding of economical issues, because suddenly you have these technologies that at the same time that they allow you to build new types of automated, more secure software than we have on the current internet. They also have inherited mechanisms through their tokens that also let us have instantly, as developers, have a payment processor inside of these apps, and also not just a payment processor, but actually an ability to create financial derivatives directly from the software we are building. And this is a powerful moment, I think, not because this is how a new revolution is going to happen. It's simply that I believe that over time we have less and less reasons for software companies not to be built bottom up. We have more and more people who are actually getting equity, from building software companies, and not just in early stages, primarily because of tokenization. This is a very specific situation we are seeing, because when you look at Web3 as such, the idea behind Web3 is not actually that you're going to distribute resources to your workers. The idea behind open source and the concept of bazaar versus citadel was basically that you can have a group of people who is completely free to contribute in any way that they actually want. The only problem that we had with this approach is basically that there was no method, if you are a company or a person working in open source, for you to actually accrue value from your work without owning IP in the company. And owning IP in a company that primarily produces open source products is actually very hard. When we started working with Mihailo Bjelajac on Polygon about 3 years ago, we basically had a very big problem. And that problem was that when we were discussing business models for Polygon, we realized that our primary business model, like if you look at Red Hat, if you look at all of these companies that are built mainly around open source projects, is basically to provide products and services based on your open source project, but you cannot actually monetize the open source project itself. And this is a very bad situation, because for every successful open source driven company that you see, there are probably 9 other ones that failed because they failed to accrue value. They invested money to build very good open source software, and then another company came by and just used that software to create better products and better services based on someone else's investment. And the speed that we currently have in innovation is such that if it's not open source, you're actually limiting yourself very much. Open source is obviously eating the world, but on the other hand, a lot of the people who are primary contributors, I would say, were getting screwed in this. And the situation that happened for Polygon also is that it merged with Matic, that had its own token, and it generated this whole ecosystem that accidentally decided to rebrand itself to Polygon. And the success, I think, was amazing, because suddenly we had all of these amazing concepts and open source tech, and we had an existing token in Matic, and the market cap of Matic went from $50 million a year and a half ago when the merge happened to about $13 billion up until recently. And I think this is mainly because suddenly, as I mentioned, with tokenization, you have this amazing concept of being able to build open source software and generate the value in a similar manner that you could do it with proprietary software through patents, through owning IP and equity in these companies, etc., etc. And this is something we didn't have before. So suddenly, the tokenization of different kind of protocols and assets is giving us the ability to reward these early and ongoing contributors of open source projects in a way that was simply impossible. And the creation of this new monetary system that we are seeing today, I think, is leading to this new type of organizations. First of all, what I want to say is, I'm speaking here in front of MVP Workshop, and I have to say that I believe that MVP Workshop is not a DAO, and it's not a DAO because of 2 reasons. First reason is that we do not actually operate as a DAO, and the second reason is that the DAOs don't actually exist. And why am I trying to say this? We are trying to build an organization that operates in this very specific segment where we are trying to use Web3 and other pre-competitive technologies to generate ideas in our 3327 research department, and then to realize where this new tech is going and how different companies in our portfolio, because as I said, we are a venture builder, how these different companies in our portfolio can benefit from these technologies. And we operate as a classical organization. We are an LTD company who opens other LTD companies where our employees get equity and access to profit share. But at the core of the business, we are basically trying to run an organization, a classical organization that is just using these new upcoming waves of new technologies to build stuff. A lot of people basically tell me, how do you explain, why do you believe this is working? And there is this anecdote about Albert Einstein from 1942 about how he was teaching at a university, and a student comes up to him and he asks, Mr. Einstein, I don't understand you. The final exam has the same questions as last year. And, and he's like, yeah, it's the same questions, well, how can you do that? How can you give same questions year after year? And Einstein replies, well, it's because the answers has changed. So I think right now we see this situation where, we have these new upcoming technologies and upcoming business models where, the answers keep changing. And we are trying to have an organization with R&D at the center that always tries to either predict or be among the first ones to react to these changes, which means that all of the people working in this organization have to be heavily incentivized to predict or notice new patterns. And we are doing this basically through equity and profit share models. Some of them are token-based, some of them are not. But the main thing is that right now, if you are an organization in Fortune 500, you probably have a 10-year lifetime, while you used to have a 60, 70-year lifetime before. And in order for you to play a long-term game, basically an infinite game, you have to have this situation happening long-term. Currently, with a rigid ownership and equity structure, that is probably no longer becoming possible. I do believe that in the next 5 to 10 years, MVP Workshop as a venture builder company is not going to just be giving away equity in our daughter companies. We are probably going to go down this road of giving away equity in the main company itself. Not because, we are like good Samaritans, we are trying to share with everyone and we have this grand vision. It's because if we are not doing it, we are probably not going to actually have a company long term. Because the rate of change is going to eat the way, we do things. All of our daughter companies are basically built to play finite games. We do have single products, we do have specific services. Probably the end game for each of these companies is to either die or be sold to a bigger player that can promote and keep growing it. But the core of the company, the core of MVP Workshop is supposed to keep playing infinite game, and that probably means that in the next 100 years or so, MVP Workshop is going to have infinite amount of owners in some way. I think the fact that we are doing it like this means that one heart of the company, as I said, is the R&D center. The other heart is the place where we actually try to build people. So we do try to do a lot of outsourcing work, consulting work. We work on a number of open source grants. We contribute to open source a lot through our services department, for our studio, and we incubate a lot of ideas both for ourselves and for other companies that are our clients too, mainly because we realize that this is the best way for us to actually apply the knowledge we are trying to get in our small R&D workshop and to actually do something with it. The reasoning is that for MVP Workshop, every individual that we create is probably equally valuable to every contract that we can commercially sign. For multiple reasons, if we are not creating these people inside of company, if we are not teaching people how to be Web3 builders and also how to be entrepreneurs in a certain way, we are not actually going to be able to spin up new ventures. We are not going to be able to open new companies that are going to generate money for us, and we like money, as much as we like technology, all of us in the company are very money-driven in certain ways. There are some people probably from my company that are going to say otherwise, maybe even at today's conference. They are probably lying, no one is actually, believing that, but, we try to maintain this image. I think the main reason, for the image maintenance is this situation where, as I said, there are these two classes of people, and we are heavily trying to attract this class of people that want to build stuff. But on the other hand, when you are running a corporation, you are primarily also in the business of allocation of resources. I consider myself a Web3 builder. I consider myself as someone who understands Web3 concepts very well. But in each of our daughter companies, there are other people who understand their specific concepts much better than myself, because they are working in a certain niche and sub-segment of this industry, and I want to keep these people happy, but I also want to take the majority of the money for myself, so I have to say it's not everything is about money. And this is not something I can keep telling them for a long time. I think most of them already realized, they just don't say it to my face. This is why I'm saying, companies are being more distributed. They are being more flexible than ever. They are trying to invest in people more than ever, because suddenly with software companies, people are actually most of the resources. And in this situation, for us to acquire these resources or to acquire people is of same value as acquiring capital. And this is why I also think that there are no actual DAOs. You cannot really call a company a DAO. It's, in a few years, it's basically going to be called a company. Web3 developers are going to be called developers. DAO is mainly a tool for you to organize a company in a certain manner. It literally means that, it's like I don't know, I own a company here in Serbia, I have a bank account for that company. It's like I would come out and say, well, we are a bank account company because we have bank accounts and we use them to pay stuff. And it makes no sense. DAOs also in this manner make no sense. There is a number of organizational types that were also pre-existent that are actually very much like a DAO. For a long time, I've been telling people, in Serbia we had something we called zadruga, or in English a collaborative, and basically that is what a DAO is. It's just a digital form of a collaborative in certain ways. What is a smart contract? Is it a contract? No, it is not. It's basically a technological tool for you to enforce a contract. Is DAO an organization? Probably not. It is just a technological tool for you to execute on a vision of organization, because suddenly you have technology that lets you organize in a certain way that it is more efficient. It's basically your CRM, it's basically your ERP in the company. At the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is that we already built a lot of tools that are behind what we today call the DAOs. All of these managing infrastructure, all of these organizational structures, in most cases, already actually exist. They are not something that is happening in crypto primarily. They are something that was happening for a long time. We just suddenly have technological tools to make these concepts more efficient than they used to be. And there is this problem with engineers in general, and I'm probably guilty of it as well. And that is the fact we always want to reinvent everything. Most people building companies today are engineers, at least the most successful ones, and they do not know a lot about governance in general. Most of them never read Aristotle. They basically think suddenly we can program this thing, and it's suddenly something no one else did before. But all of these structures and the ways we think about organizations are not actually that new. I think this is a turning point where in the next 5 to 10 years we can decide what the future is going to look like. And we already did this with distributed databases a few years back. I got into Web3 and crypto in 2015, when Ethereum happened. In 2017, we created MVP Workshop as a company that builds Web3 projects primarily, and it is its only goal. And then in 2017, 2018, we started seeing a lot of these consortium blockchains coming up, like Hyperledger and everything that was happening there. And I noticed this very interesting pattern, that there are these people, building things in crypto world that I was close to, which were mainly, guys who believed in certain visions and they thought they are building something for the first time. And then you had a lot of people in big corporations who were trying to do something completely different, and that is to show that in their existing businesses they can also use blockchain and crypto, and they turn to these projects such as Hyperledger, which have no consensus model, have no token, and have no actual blockchain. You know, basically, if you look at these private chains, especially the ones in that time, they were pretty much distributed databases or distributed ledgers that we had in the 50s. Because having a distributed transaction-based database is not a new thing. It's a 60, 70-year-old concept. And we just repackaged it and sold it to ourselves, you know, in corporations as a new thing. And if you actually look at what was going on 50, 70 years ago, there is actually a very good reasons why we stopped using distributed transactional-based databases, and it's because they are very expensive, slow, and because of that, inferior and relatively stupid compared to, you know, compared to SQL, compared to other things that we can actually have today. And so with all of these new corporate blockchains, we ended up making a full circle. Right now, I feel we are trying to do the same thing with smart contracts. We are trying to do the same thing with DAOs, and it makes no real sense. The reasoning why I think this is dangerous is not that it's not going to happen in a much better way anyway. You know, it will. But the difference is how much time are we actually going to lose before we realize that it is not that technology is changing the way we work. It's basically that the way we work is going to change anyway, primarily because of the distributions of the work resources. This is kind of enabled by technology, but it's not the technology's fault. It's just, you know, the way we organize our lives changes with time. And I think as soon as we realize that the primary drivers of business and everything else is going to be these new types of human behavior, and the technology is there just to follow it, we are going to probably be better off just because we will act accordingly instead of going through all of these bubble bursting cycles of figuring things out. What I want to say is, you know, they told me, you know, because of the tight schedule, we are not doing actually Q&As. But if someone actually wants, you know, to have a talk about this or any other subject, I will be in the hallway and around. And of course, you can always ping me on LinkedIn, and we can arrange meeting while you're still in Belgrade. For those of you who are in Belgrade in general, you know, I'm pretty sure we will have more and more chances to meet because because of the success of these couple of projects that we had a chance to work, I think more and more people actually want to talk to us at all. That's it, I would say. Thank you for having me here. I was very happy to have a chance to become a part of this type of a conference. I'm pretty sure that there are many people who will disagree with my belief that DAOs are not actually organizations and the smart contracts are actually not contracts. But on the other hand, that doesn't mean I'm right. That just means we also need to talk more to each other, and let's see what happens from there. And you know, it's a bear market today, but let's just keep building. It's an exciting future. Thank you all.